The first time I read about these hotels, I honestly thought it was just rumors or overhyped stories. But the deeper I dug, the more I realized these places are not just hotels. They are warnings wrapped in bricks and walls. Imagine checking in for a night and carrying the weight of knowing something terrible once happened there, or could still happen. The thought alone sends chills down my spine. Today, we're not just exploring luxury or comfort, we're stepping into danger itself. These are the 5 most dangerous hotels in the world, and trust me, they're unlike anything you've seen. If you enjoy exploring these mysterious and dangerous places with me, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss the next adventure. 1 Cecil Hotel, Los Angeles, USA. I still remember the first time I stepped inside the Cecil Hotel in Los Angeles. From the outside, it looked like just another old building in the heart of downtown, its faded sign hanging above the entrance, almost daring me to walk in. But the moment I pushed open the heavy glass doors, I felt something strange in the air, like the weight of decades of secrets pressing down on me. The lobby was dimly lit, and the silence carried a heaviness that made even my footsteps sound louder than they should. I kept telling myself it was just an old hotel, but deep inside, I knew this place was different. Every corner seemed to whisper stories of people who once checked in and never walked out again. As I walked toward the creaky elevators, I couldn't help but remember the story of Elisa Lam, the young woman who disappeared inside these very walls. She was last seen in this very elevator, pressing buttons frantically as if she was trying to escape something no one else could see. The thought sent chills down my spine, especially as I realized I was standing in almost the exact same spot. The elevator doors opened slowly, and I stepped inside. The air was stale, and the flickering light above me made it hard to ignore the uneasiness crawling under my skin. I pressed for the higher floors, and as the elevator jerked upward, I could almost imagine the fear she must have felt. The stories say she was later found in the rooftop water tank, and every time I thought about it, a heavy lump formed in my throat. How could someone vanish in a place full of people, only to be discovered in such a horrifying way? When the doors opened again, I found myself in a long hallway lined with peeling wallpaper and doors that seemed to hide more than they revealed. The silence was unbearable. But then I thought about the history, the guests who came here and never left. This hotel was once a home for drifters, lost souls, and even serial killers. Richard Ramirez, the infamous Night Stalker, lived here while carrying out his crimes. Just knowing that fact made the floor beneath me feel unsafe, as if his shadow was still walking these corridors at night. I took a deep breath and kept walking, my heart pounding harder with every step. My mind kept flashing back to all the strange deaths, the suicides, the unsolved mysteries that stained this hotel's history. It was almost as if the walls themselves had absorbed the screams and cries of those who once stayed here. I paused near a window and looked out at the city lights below. From up here, downtown Los Angeles looked alive and buzzing. But inside these walls, time felt frozen, trapped in a darker chapter of history. The longer I stayed, the stronger the feeling grew that I wasn't truly alone. It wasn't just the creaks of the old building. It was something heavier, something watching. I could feel it in the silence, in the way the air refused to let me breathe freely. And at that moment, I realized why the Cecil Hotel is remembered not as a place of rest, but as one of the most dangerous hotels in the world. It's not just the crimes or the tragedies, it's the way it makes you feel, like you've stepped into a story that you might never escape from. 2. Clown Motel, Tonopah, Nevada, USA. When I first pulled into the dusty little town of Tonopah, Nevada, I thought the desert heat was the only thing that would make me uncomfortable. But then I saw it, the Clown Motel. Its bright sign with painted clowns looked almost cheerful from a distance, but the closer I got, the heavier the air felt around me. Rows of clown figures, some smiling and others with glassy eyes, stared back at me from the windows. I tried to laugh it off, telling myself it was just a gimmick, but my gut told me otherwise. The first step inside the lobby made me freeze. Hundreds of clown dolls were crammed onto shelves, hanging from walls, and standing silently in corners. Each one seemed to follow me with painted eyes. I told myself not to overthink it, but there was no escaping the uneasy feeling pressing down on my chest. Behind the counter, the clerk gave me a casual smile, as if nothing was strange here. He handed me my room key and simply said, "You'll get used to it." His tone didn't sound reassuring at all. It sounded more like a warning. My room was at the end of the hall, and every step echoed through the quiet motel. The wallpaper was peeling, and the smell of old carpet mixed with desert dust filled the air. I dropped my bag on the bed, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. The window overlooked the old Tonopah cemetery, its crooked headstones clearly visible under the burning Sunday. People say the motel was built right next to it on purpose. And standing there, I couldn't deny how strange it felt. It was as if the clowns inside and the graves outside were connected in some way, silently feeding off each other. Nightfall came quicker than I expected. The neon sign outside flickered red and blue against the curtains, and the sound of wind whistled through the cracks in the old windows. I lay on the bed, trying to sleep, but the silence kept breaking with faint noises like footsteps just outside my door. At one point, I swore I heard laughter, high-pitched and distant, as if a child was giggling in the hallway. My heart pounded so hard I could barely breathe. I got up, opened the door, but the hallway was completely empty. Back inside, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the clown painting above the dresser. Its grin seemed wider now, its painted eyes almost alive. I wanted to convince myself it was all in my head, but then I heard it again. Soft tapping, like little fingers drumming against the wooden table in the corner. My hands went cold as I realized I hadn't placed anything on that table. The tapping stopped the moment I looked at it, leaving only the sound of my own heartbeat echoing in the room. By morning, the sunlight spilling through the curtains felt like salvation. I stepped outside and looked back at the clown motel. In daylight, it almost looked normal again, as if the night had played tricks on me. But deep down, I knew what I felt was real. The clowns weren't just decorations, and the cemetery outside wasn't just a coincidence. Something about this place holds on to you, whispers to you, and makes sure you never forget that one night you dared to stay at the Clown Motel, 3 Europa Hotel, Belfast, Northern Ireland. I still remember the day I walked into the Europa Hotel in Belfast. From the outside, it looked like any other grand hotel, with tall glass doors and a steady stream of people moving in and out. But as soon as I stepped inside, I could sense something different. There was a strange weight in the air, almost like the walls themselves had been through more than they could carry. People call it the most bombed hotel in the world, and when you're inside, that title doesn't feel like an exaggeration, it feels like truth. As I stood in the lobby, I couldn't help but notice how calm everything seemed. The polished floors, the gentle sound of suitcases rolling across the tiles, and the quiet chatter of guests checking in, it all looked normal. Yet beneath that calm, I could feel something unsettled. It's hard to explain, but it was like the silence carried echoes of the past. I thought about the 1987 when bombs tore through this very place during the Troubles. Guests would run for cover, windows shattered, walls cracked, and yet the hotel kept standing, refusing to disappear. I took the elevator up to my floor, and while it hummed quietly, I imagined how terrifying it must have been back then. The thought of hearing an explosion while standing in this same elevator made my chest tighten. When the doors opened, the hallway stretched long and empty. But in my mind, I could almost hear the chaos of those years, alarms ringing, people screaming, smoke filling the air. The hotel has been rebuilt and polished many times since, but scars like that don't fade easily. When I entered my room, I walked straight to the window and looked out over Belfast. The city looked peaceful, the streets alive with traffic and the normal rhythm of life. But standing there, I kept thinking of the reporters who once filled this hotel, writing stories while bombs went off nearby. They called it the heartbeat of the Troubles, because if you wanted to know what was happening in Northern Ireland, you came to the Europa. That thought sent chills down my spine. How many nights were spent here, waiting for the next blast, not knowing if the walls would hold or if the glass would shatter again. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the hum of the city outside. But sleep didn't come easily. Every creak of the building made me flinch. At one point, I swore I felt a faint vibration under the floor, and for a split second, my heart raced, convinced it was another explosion. Of course, it wasn't just the building settling, or maybe my nerves playing tricks. But in a place like this, your imagination doesn't need much to run wild. By morning, I walked through the lobby again, sunlight pouring in through the glass doors. Guests laughed, staff moved quickly, and life carried on as if nothing had ever happened here. But I knew better. The Europa Hotel isn't just another stop for travelers. It's a survivor, carrying the memories of fear, chaos, and resilience. And once you've spent a night inside, you don't just check out with your luggage, you carry a piece of its history with you, whether you want to or not. 4. Crescent Hotel and Spa, Eureka Springs, Arkansas, USA. The first time I walked into the Crescent Hotel in Eureka Springs, it was a clear evening, and the building stood proudly on the hill like an old guardian of the town. From the outside, its stone walls looked beautiful, almost welcoming. But the moment I stepped through the front doors, I felt a sudden drop in temperature, as if the air itself wanted to warn me that this place was not just another hotel. The lobby was quiet, too quiet, and even though the chandeliers glowed warmly, I could sense something hiding in the shadows. As I checked in, the receptionist gave me a polite smile, but her eyes carried a weight, almost like she knew what might happen once I was alone in my room. I walked toward the elevator, its iron gate squeaking as I pulled it closed. The ride was slow, and with every second, I felt more uneasy. My floor was silent, the kind of silence that doesn't comfort you. It presses on your chest. The hallway stretched long, lined with old portraits, and for a moment, I thought one of the figures in the frames was watching me as I walked by. When I entered my room, I set my bag down and went straight to the window. The view of the Ozark Mountains was stunning, but it couldn't distract me from the strange heaviness inside the room. Stories of this hotel being haunted ran through my mind, how it once served as a hospital, how patients were promised miracle cures that never came, how so many died within these walls. I sat on the bed, and the mattress gave a faint creak, as though someone had just sat beside me. I froze, staring at the empty space. As night fell, the atmosphere grew even heavier. The hallway outside was completely still, but from my room, I began to hear faint whispers, so low I couldn't make out the words. I pressed my ear to the wall, but the moment I did, the whispers stopped. That silence was worse than the sound. My heart was pounding, and I tried to calm myself, telling my mind it was only old pipes or wind. But deep down, I knew that wasn't the truth. Around midnight, I woke suddenly, unsure if I had been dreaming. The room was colder than before, and my breath was visible in the air. I sat up, and there it was, a faint shadow near the bathroom door. It didn't move, it didn't make a sound, it just stood there. My throat went dry, and I couldn't even force out a word. I blinked once, and the shadow was gone, but the fear it left behind stayed with me for the rest of the night. By morning, sunlight filled the room, and the hotel looked normal again, almost harmless. Guests laughed at breakfast, staff moved quickly, and the building looked alive with activity. But I couldn't shake what I had felt. The Crescent Hotel is beautiful, yes, but beneath that beauty is something darker, something you only understand once you've been inside. It's not just a hotel, it's a place where history, tragedy, and the unexplained are stitched into every wall. And once you've spent a night there, you carry its weight long after you've left. 5. Sina Hotel, abandoned, 5-star hotel, Agonda, Goa, India. I still remember the day I drove through the winding roads of Northern California, heading deep into the Sierra Nevada mountains. The sun was dipping behind the peaks, casting long shadows across the valley, and my heart raced with anticipation. I was on my way to see the remains of the Iron Mountain Ski Resort, a place that once welcomed laughter, ski tracks, and families huddled together for winter fun. Now, it stood forgotten, and I was determined to see what time had left behind. The road itself felt like a warning. Cracked pavement, Overgrown weeds and faded road signs hinted at years of abandonment. As I turned a corner, I caught the first glimpse of the resort buildings, sitting quietly against the snowy backdrop, almost as if they were waiting for someone to notice them again. My chest tightened a little. This wasn't just an abandoned site. It was a memory frozen in time. Walking through the broken entrance gate, I could still see the outlines of what once was. The ski lifts stood like skeletons, their cables sagging and chairs dangling mid-air, never to carry another skier. The silence around me was overwhelming. No chatter, no laughter, no sound of skis cutting through snow. Just the hollow whistling of the wind moving through rusted metal poles. I paused for a moment, imagining the resort alive, children racing down the slopes, and families gathering around fireplaces. The contrast between that vision and the emptiness before me hit harder than I expected. Inside the main lodge, shards of broken glass crunched under my boots. Old wooden beams creaked above me, and graffiti-covered walls that once might have displayed colorful posters of winter events. A torn ski jacket lay in the corner, covered in dust, as though someone had left in a hurry and never came back. My mind kept asking, what happened here? How could a place so full of energy and joy end up abandoned? Swallowed by nature. The deeper I went, the heavier the air felt. It wasn't just the decay, it was the sensation of standing in a place that had once held so many stories. I walked into a room where the windows looked out onto the mountains. The view was breathtaking, but it was impossible not to notice how the broken glass framed the peaks like scars. Standing there, I thought about the people who once came here seeking adventure. Did they ever imagine the resort would become nothing more than ruins? As I left, I turned back one last time. The Iron Mountain Ski Resort looked both haunting and beautiful in its silence. The rust, the broken lifts, the collapsing roofs. They weren't just signs of abandonment. They were proof of how quickly life can change. Driving away, I couldn't shake the feeling that the resort wasn't completely empty. It still held the echoes of every laugh, every cheer, and every memory created there. And for a brief moment, I felt like I wasn't just exploring an abandoned place. I was standing in the middle of a story that time itself had tried to bury.